Hello and welcome to the Sports Art Podcast. I want to thank everyone for liking, sharing, and watching our podcast so far. Please continue to do so. If you haven't watched it so far, go onto YouTube and subscribe to our channel. And so, as we found out today, that I'm not very good at keeping up with the boys' chat. So I will swiftly pass this on to Martin, who will lead us with the Livy and European football topic today.
Right, so it's became apparent in the news that Livingston, if they do manage to finish within the places to qualify for Europe, may not be allowed to compete because of certain criteria that the European, UEFA have. And I want to see what everybody's opinion is on that. Bruce, what are your thoughts on it? Should Livingston be able to compete?
Of course they should. I think, don't get me wrong, having the necessary paperwork up to date and everything is an important part of obviously the requirements from UEFA. But at the end of the day, this is the first chance in, was it 18 years or something? I read to get into European football. It's phenomenal. So, they're a bit smaller than some of the other clubs we've had representing Scotland in Europe, but they should have an even crack of the whip, shouldn't they?
I just find it weird because the criteria is there at the start of the season. Everybody knew what the rules were, and the two things that they're failing on just now that they're still trying to work on is they didn't hand in the appropriate paperwork for their accounts. Supposedly, David Martindale's accountant was handling that. I think.
Take from that what you will.
The other issue they have, which I actually have a big issue with, is Livingston ceased to have a youth academy in 2018, and one of the criteria of playing in Europe is to have a youth academy at whatever level. The reason they don't have a youth academy is because the SFA set up Project Brave and put Livingston in the bottom tier of that, and it wasn't cost effective for Livingston have a youth academy. Is that SFA's fault, or is that Livingston just should be throwing money for nothing? James, what's your thoughts on this?
I think that the economics of it has to come into account. If you are a small team like Livingston, what's the point of having a youth academy for the best players to come, or the best teams to come around and take your best players that you've developed and taking them for little cost? So I think there needs to be a system in place where there's actual proper compensation for smaller teams when they develop good talent. They then move on to the big teams. I know there was a case in England recently where Liverpool were ordered to pay Fulham a couple of £1 million because they took one of their youth products. And I think if youth development is a factor in getting European football, then there has to be a compensation scheme agreed upon within European football, because what's the point of having it economically otherwise? But I also think it's something else that this whole scenario just screams, which is it's okay to be racist and be in European football, but it's not okay to have accounts slightly backdated, to have no youth academy. I think they've got their priorities slightly wrong, UEFA.
I think we always. I don't think we've ever actually spoke very highly of UEFA on this podcast. A couple of the names that have came out of Livingston's youth academy: Lee Griffiths, Robert Snodgrass, Graham Dorrans, Andy Halliday, McPake, and McNulty.
Could you name any more Hitchcocks if you tried?
There was only two there, three. One was on loan. But that's the sort of level a player. I mean, what, 4 internationals out of that? So that their academy wasn't too bad.
I think when you come to academy, it might not be the same as Scotland, but I know for England you've got teams like Barnsley and Brentford and that, also London-based clubs had to shut their youth academies because you've got teams like Man City with London-based youth academies. It becomes a point of why have a youth academy where all the where all the bigger teams, not saying Rangers and Celtic or Hearts and Hibs do, they all go to the big name because they thought, oh, if I get breakthrough there, it'll be great for me. And so why have a youth academy when all the kids go there and then you just cherry pick the ones who don't quite make it? So I feel that tends to be what happens. Obviously, being a Chelsea fan, you see how their loan system works. If you've got a Chelsea player going out on loan to Falkirk, no offence, the player's probably not going to be good enough for Chelsea. So it's kind of that thing with Livingston shutting it down. You're going to cherry pick from the ones who aren't quite the tier of Celtic or Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, or anyone like that. But there's going to be some in the pack who are a bit lower down, who are still going to be good, that you can still make into your team.
You say that, but Casper Schmeichel went to Falkirk alone.
Yep.
That's a very true point.
Yeah,
That was when Falkirk were in a better division, not back when they were in League One.
Brentford actively closed their youth development section down, not because of Man City or Chelsea having academies based in London, but because they looked at their accounts and they said it is not cost effective. It's better to take the rejects from the top clubs who are good enough to play at the championship level, and then we'll develop them from that level and sell them on for profit. So you cannot punish clubs for being economically poorer than the elite. It just makes no sense.
I think if they're in the kind of qualification zone, these shouldn't be factors that affect them actually qualifying for Euro, because obviously a team like Livingston probably I don't know. Firstly, is it not like a requirement to have the accounts done anyways, properly? Generally, even if you're qualifying for Europe or not. If you're qualifying for Europe or not.
But I think we should ask the Hearts and Rangers fans about that.
Oh. There you go again.
Thanks, James.
So without them saying anything, it's funny, with Mitchell mentioning Falkirk, Falkirk finished top of their division 3 times and weren't able to get promoted because they still stayed at Brockville and hadn't moved to their new Falkirk Stadium. So they had to follow the criteria. So why is Livingston any different?
I think with that, you can always, if Falkirk could move, you see it in it. Well, look at I think it's League One maybe Championship with Coventry and Birmingham. Just go play it. I know Falkirk, there's not really another local stadium to Falkirk, but surely you can strike a deal to move stadium while so you can still play.
The stadium requirement is a little bit silly in Scottish football. How many times do you actually see Falkirk Stadium sold out, even when they were in the SPFL? It was
I've never
Celtic,
seen it sold out
Rangers.
For someone who was I was a ball boy at Falkirk. So I was there every home game for 3 years, even for the big games like your Celtic, Rangers, Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, Martin. Don't say anything about me saying Hibs before I said Hearts. That's a thing you would pick up on. But I've never seen it sold out. The away side on those games always sold out, always packed. Yes. They used to have their temporary sort of stand, as it was called, and it was always sold out because away fans had that and the other big one. But the home side was never sold out up until it reached the playoffs, and you got all the young team thinking, "Oh, let's go and get on TV. Let's follow our local team," and it's not going to happen.
And then just become viral on TikTok and that for trying to jump Hibs players on the train.
The trampolines on the train station.
Yes.
Who didn't install the trampolines at Grahamston train station?
Again, there's folk in that video that also jumped me and Dean on it. So.
Never good jumping.
Back to Livingston. Livingston do seem to be. Livingston are one of the smaller teams, and they were never expected to get to the point of qualifying for Europe. But I do think that within any league, the teams at the bottom should still be able to finish high up and get all the positives that you're receiving for finishing that level. So whether it's a case of everybody has to follow the criteria at the start of the season, which I still blame SFA for them not following the criteria in the youth system side anyway. But you want want to support an underdog. You want an underdog to sort of do well, unless it's Hamilton, sort of dog shit. But you want to see the underdogs actually progress and sort of make better. I mean, look, Livingston. I mean, they've done a couple of weird things to make money. But when you were allowed fans in the stadium, they allowed Celtic and Rangers basically as many seats as they wanted because there was no point having half-empty stadium. They had 3 stands worth or 2 stands worth of Celtic and Rangers against their 1 stand in Livingston because that was making them money and filling the stadium. And I think their record at home in those cases was actually not too bad. But
So is that?
Does anybody think? Sorry, Sharon, no, you go.
I was gonna say, is that a requirement that you need to fill your stadiums to qualify for Europe? No.
No,
Or is that just for accounts?
That just makes more money. Aye.
Right. Oh, okay. Fair.
So, I'll quickly go round then, unless anybody's got anything else to say on the subject. James, do you think Livingston should be allowed to compete in Europe if they finish within that position?
Not if they've not got completed accounts, because that's a legal requirement, but they shouldn't be barred because they don't have a youth academy. Change the criteria for that regard.
Mitchell?
I agree with James, even though I think finishing the paperwork's a bit dodgy because you never know who UEFA will try to hit with financial fair play. They've had 3 bites of the cherry with Man City, and they're still going at it. They might take the wrath out in Livingston and really bankrupt them.
Bruce, that's Mitchell agreed with James. Do you want to follow suit?
I know you want to.
I think Livingston should be allowed to play. I think Livingston should be allowed to play regardless. I think UEFA need to get their house in order with racism and
that's because,
other important issues first before they start.
That's because he'd ban his own club from Europe if he answered an agreement with me.
Yeah, I got that. Shahan?
Yes, I should be allowed to play. Yeah, that's it. I wouldn't go too much in detail.
Shahan has no idea on this subject.
Yeah, I literally don't. So,
Gavin?
Yeah,
I don't think they should. I think obviously that youth academy is a thing out of their hands in terms of, as James said, for the bottom line, it would cost too much money for them to keep it operating in its full entirety. So it makes sense. The same reason that multiple teams have got rid of their academies. But as also James mentioned, I hate agreeing with him so much. I think everyone does. The fact that they've not completed their accountants, not completed their paperwork. If you're a normal business operating and hadn't completed your paperwork, you would face some very serious ramifications for that. So why should a football club be any different? So no.
Right, so I kind of, I'm going to agree with Gav with that because I think the paperwork is the main criteria. They've not finished the paperwork and put the accounts in. Say David Martindale's accountant has just been a bit dodgy as per. But I would hold the ground agreeing with, I think, just about everybody that the youth system side of it as a business model as a club, it should be the club's decision whether to have a youth system starting at 8-year-old or, I mean, Livingston have a youth system starting at 16. It's not like they have no youth system. They start at 16, they bring players in, so there's still a chance to progress into the first team. So I don't think you should be allowed to not compete for that reason.
So, quick question: do they still have time to get their accounts in order, or is that too late now for them?
They're trying to. There's ongoing talks, but they still have opportunity not to compete for Europe. But I believe that if they finish above Aberdeen, which is neither here or there, they'll go to Europe. If they finish 4th, then it will depend on one of the higher up in the league teams winning the Scottish Cup for that place to then fall to them.
Just a quick one before you move on, Martin. Obviously, so you're saying about they're in talks. Again, I don't agree with that because everything like that has a deadline, and if you miss that deadline, it shouldn't be a case of, oh wait, and we'll talk to you and we'll see what we can figure out and what we can work out. It shouldn't happen.
as I've said before about UEFA, they are that backhanded and just terrible for every sense that I've seen. They even believe that Rangers are the same team. So, on that note,
so I think we should actually put this question forward to our social media accounts. Please let us know if you think that Livingston should be making that European place, or if they qualify for it, if they should go ahead even with their accounts and the issues they're facing anyways. Talking about social media, Rangers are boycotting social media, and we will go to our resident Rangers fan for some information on that. Go on then, Brucey.
Yeah, so
They said Rangers fan.
I think it was right. Okay, so thanks for that, Mitchell. For that.
Did I get the name wrong? Was it
piece of
Sefco?
input? Thanks very much.
You may say the Rangers.
James will probably end up correcting me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I was pretty critical of social media outlets and they were not doing in terms of stamping out racism online. And we've seen many sports people, not just footballers, across the globe being affected by racial abuse online. We've mentioned before that it's not acceptable, especially now that it's online and it's kind of 24/7 in these people's in faces. Do you know what I mean? So on Thursday, Swansea decided that they were going to boycott social media. They asked other clubs to follow suit. The Scottish champions and Birmingham decided to follow suit on Thursday night and boycott social media for a week.
You just said Rangers, didn't have to specify.
Oh no, I did.
So they got a massive following in their in what they've asked everybody to do.
Well,
2 teams.
Apparently so, but I think that in itself is absolutely disgusting that we're not taking a united stand on this front. This needs to be stamped out once and for all. And if people aren't willing to take a stand, then what hope have we got in stamping this out?
I don't think.
But yes, so three teams have taken a stand. What was that, Mitchell?
I don't think you can say it like, obviously I understand teams taking united front, but I don't think you can say all teams should take it, because you look at like your likes of Ronaldo's and even like Pulisic and stuff people like that. They've got sponsors.
Did you just say Pulisic and Ronaldo in the same?
Yes, because I know there are two that do sponsored posts.
Because Pulisic scored 2 great goals at the weekend.
That too.
He did.
But yeah, you look at them, they post on social media as another form of income with all their sponsorships with Adidas and such. So like you're telling them to boycott that, which means they're gonna not like they really need it, but they're gonna miss out on revenue that they would produce. It's part of their job. It's part of their agreement with their sponsors. So you can understand why not every team is taking that stance.
But Mitchell, that's the sort of disruption we need. That is the sort of disruption that needs to happen to these social media outlets for this to take effect. They'll suddenly realise, they won't necessarily realise when, for example, possibly a Birmingham or a Rangers isn't on their social media, but they'll notice when Cristiano Ronaldo, who's putting up X, Y, and Z and bringing in money, isn't posting. It's not
like, right, okay. All these people can go off social media, right? It's still not going to stop the racist people and the people that are making those comments.
But
it's not.
But what we're looking, Shahan, we're not looking to stop racism. We're looking to get these social media platforms to take responsibility and accountability for what's going on online.
Can I stop you for a second?
At the end of the day, we're trying to stop racism. That shouldn't be happening in the world at all.
100%. But what we're looking for is these people. It starts by taking responsibility and accountability for what's happening. Not, it will happen. Eventually, we will hopefully stamp racism out. But first of all, this social media, this abuse online needs to stop, and then hopefully we can work towards a picture of stamping this out. Full stop. But it's going to take time.
So, see, for the past 3-4 minutes, I've kind of listened to what was said, but mainly I've been watching James. And his reaction to all this. I kind of want to hear his opinion on the matter.
This is going to be hilarious.
On social media just do not work. The point, even thinking that because somebody's not going to tweet for a week that racism is going to end is just absolutely ludicrous. It's not. People are still going to tweet nasty things. And if they don't tweet it, they're going to say it in person because these views are held by people. It's not because of social media that these views are explained. It's because people hold these views. Education is how to do it, and you don't educate people by removing good from society. You want good people on social media to promote goodness. You do not promote goodness by taking away good. That is just a ludicrous suggestion. I agree with, well, the sentiment that Swansea and Rangers and Birmingham have is shared by every other team in the country. Racism is bad. This will not do anything to tackle it.
James, in a roundabout way, did you just say that Rangers are good?
You did indeed. I heard that. We've got it on record. Now, what I want to ask James is, so James is quite happy with Instagram and Facebook having UEFA's approach to having accountability and responsibility of racism.
Well, all I'm saying is that if you make social media a publisher,
No,
then
no,
you're going
so
into big legal qualms.
You're not standing by it. You're not standing by the decision to come off of social media to make the social media platforms accountable for what goes on their platform.
I'm actually looking at the legal intricacy of this example. If you make social media companies starting to edit what they put on their website, you do not make them social media platforms. You make them publishers, and that gets them into big legal trouble. So you have to approach this pragmatically. We all want racism to be gone. We want all forms of abuse to be gone, but you just cannot wish it away. You have to take it pragmatically and look at what actually can be done. A boycott will not end it. Banning of people on these accounts will not end it. It is education, education, education. I agree with the sentiment of the clubs who have started this boycott, but it's going to make zero difference.
So see, like the clubs that have boycotted, right? Have their fans boycotted as well? Are they all off social media?
No.
It's not going to make a difference.
No,
Like,
I know. Of a few fans.
You've got. I don't know how many fans Rangers have. I don't say 50,000, right? That fill the stadium. If only 30 people that literally play on the pitch are only boycotting social media, that's not going to make a massive impact on the companies that are running those social media, are they? Either.
Shahan, that's a good point. Bruce, as a Rangers fan, are you following suit and following your club's point of view of boycotting all social media to end racism? In terms of from you as a follower of the club, are you following their kind of their way at the moment?
I will be having a week. I'm starting on Monday and I'm boycotting for a week. I didn't realise that it was as of Thursday, and then I saw other people posting. So I've decided that Monday is going to be my week. And unfortunately not the same week as the club because I'd missed when that started. I didn't realise it was Thursday. But
so they're only doing it for a week.
So you did.
Oh, so that's going to make a massive
week
difference,
boycott.
isn't it?
I think
That comes back to James's point.
To combat Bruce's point and to sort of back up James's, I think the biggest thing, boycotting social media, it won't work. Look at the Premier League and I think Scottish League did as well, and taking the knee. What has that done? Other than Wilfred Zaha coming out going, why do I have to take the knee because I seem to be inferior? And him standing.
I sort of tend to agree with the taking a knee at some points. Now, I know that it does nothing, but what it does do is it makes people talk about the subject. And then even when somebody came along, Zaha came along and said he wasn't going to take the knee. And I think the problem was when the knee started to become normal and nobody actually said, right, it's a case of, right, we'll just take the knee for sake of taking the knee. And then Millwall came out with, right, we're not taking the knee anymore. Then the discussion started again. And it's important, it's part of the education process, which I agree with, that it's talked about. It needs to be discussed. It needs to be something that's constantly brought to head. And I do think even things like Zaha coming out and saying, I don't agree with it, it still brings it to the point. It still sort of brings a discussion. And every time somebody complains about it, there's a discussion. Every time somebody says they're not doing it anymore, there's a discussion. So I do agree with it to a point. The actual act of it does nothing, but it does make people talk about it. And that's the only way I see it. And that will be the same with same with the social media stance of not talking. It'll do nothing. All it's done is it's made people talk about it for this week. And unless it's an ongoing thing where you can then have another team come in and say something about it, another team come in and say about it, it then becomes part of an education process where everybody's talking about it, and then there's discussions, and hopefully at that point it's condemned again, and you can actually get to a point where it becomes lesser. It's not going to go away. I have a belief that humans are just made to piss other humans off. And they'll find any way they can. I'm not looking at you directly, Bruce. Then they'll find any way they can to piss somebody off. And yes, there's a line, and racism's miles past that line. But everybody's just finding that way to piss people off, and that's. I don't understand why they do it, but that's why I see it happening.
The thing is, we've spoken here before about taking the knee and Black Lives Matter, and why people disagree with it and such. But again, to go back up James's point, if you're doing it for 1 week, 7 days, it's not going to make an impact at all. There's not going to be someone looking at their phone going, Rangers have no post this week. Swansea have no post this week. Birmingham's no posted this week. No one's going to look and say, that's impacted my life this much, like so much that I've not seen a post from them this week. Looking at their phone going, I mean, not one. I don't think any fan will look at their phone and be like, I've not seen my usual update.
Well, yeah,
I'll be happy if all the Rangers fans stop doing it. I'll be happy.
And let's be honest, like, if they're only boycotting for a week, I don't imagine that all the players and things like that have deleted their accounts. So they're probably still able to read anything that's coming in for them. They're not posting anything, but they're still probably able to read. So it's not really making a difference as to what's going to be getting told to them. And I imagine they probably, like, some of the players might get a lot more backlash on these things than they would have normally.
No,
can I double down on Gav's point quickly?
What?
Just got a quick question. James, do you follow Rangers, Swansea, or Birmingham on social media?
I follow Rangers, and they're still tweeting, so the official club account's not
That's
actually.
getting edited. That comment there's getting edited.
I'm going to repeat myself just to make it more clippable. I follow Rangers. Does that work?
Martin, do you follow any of those three teams?
No.
Shahan?
After we started the podcast, I started following Rangers, yes.
Yeah. Gavin?
I follow Swansea on Facebook, as they have Falkirk Youth Academy players that went down there and got
and such, yeah. And Bruce, we know you follow Rangers. And Celtic, actually, but they're not part of this conversation.
Everywhere, anywhere.
But there's an issue, like, they're boycotting it, and you've got three of us, Martin, me and Martin, don't follow any of those teams. So it's like they're not posting anyway, we're not going to see it. So if I see something on Instagram, it'll be on my For You page, and it'll be a post that's a couple of days old already.
Again, Mitchell, that's the next step.
What I find funny.
Pay enough attention.
What I find funny is there's. When you go, Gav.
I'm saying the big point there is there enough attention being paid to the posts that they're making? So it's one thing saying, do you follow the pages? If you had said to me, Mitchell, do you follow a page? Right, okay. Do you pay attention to when they post? Hell no.
No,
it's not going to make an impact. Them not showing up on my newsfeed.
Would anybody notice if somebody didn't post for a week? Or
if it was
company that you
what I find funny is that there's 6 of us on this podcast, and instead of congratulating them on at least trying to do something towards it, we've started picking faults in the whole process.
It's a token gesture.
To give James his due, James said he appreciated the sentiments. To give James his due, James, the only Celtic fan in this company, said he appreciates what Rangers and 2 other clubs are doing, and nobody else has said, do you know what, they're actually trying to do something here, let's just pick at them is what we're doing.
I appreciate what they're doing, and I agree with Martin that it will get talked about because we are doing it right now. We've chosen it as a topic because we want to talk about it. But once it becomes a norm, it'll be just like taking the knee. It'll get done, and nothing will get done in
Totally.
the background.
Totally,
that's
but
Bruce,
at least they're
that's
trying
my
to do
point on that.
something.
It'll just become the norm. Like
At least
it
they're trying to do
wouldn't
something.
change.
All
It
we've
wouldn't
done
change
for the
anything.
past 15
Bruce.
minutes is pick faults as opposed to saying, do you know what? At least people
Bruce,
are trying to do something to try and stamp this out.
Bruce, I've just got one very quick question. You're a good guy. You don't post anything that is racist on social media. You're not a racist
Indeed.
person.
Have you posted something in the last like 15 years? Or?
But the notion of you removing yourself from social media for a week, how is that going to tackle racism? You're a good guy. Why is removing a good person from social media promoting good?
And James, I totally see where you're coming from on that. You know, for once, I'm going to agree with you on something apart from last week when I agreed with you all podcast. However, I'm going to agree with you on that. You know, you make a very good point. However, anything worth doing, anything to try and make an attempt at trying to cause difference, trying to cause change is surely worth attempting. Anything. I hold my hand up to anybody who tries to do something to make a positive change in society. It can be, it can make the smallest difference. It can make the biggest difference.
I was going to say,
People
Bruce,
trying to make difference is surely a good thing.
It sounds a bit like the Pied Piper playing the pipes and the following not actually thinking about the actual impact it's going to have.
Unless there's an early.
Yeah. I was going to say, Bruce, I would totally agree with you, Bruce. Like, yeah, if you're doing something to try and cause change, it's good. But it just seems like, to me, the taking the knee, this boycott, they're nothing more than token gestures. And I feel like they hurt causes more than they'll ever help, because they'll do them, and then when they stop, people go, "Oh, well, it's still happening, so why have you stopped?"
But people try
to
cause change is a good thing.
What timeline do you put on these things, though? What timeline do you put on the taking the knee? Do you stop it this season? Do you stop it next season? Do you have to do it for the next 15 years?
It's already lost its impact.
That's my point with it being like a token gesture. Yes, we get the message, it's meant to be powerful, but what does it actually do? Yeah. And the fact is, for these changes, as James has said, they're much more deep-rooted than a single gesture or action can take.
The problem with The problem with social media is it's a tool for the clubs. It's something they need to use. They can't go away and say, I'm going to come away from social media for 6 months, because the players that are involved with it, they start losing money, because these are the massive teams. I mean, Swansea, Birmingham, Rangers they're not teams that you're going to say, right, I didn't need the money. Maybe your higher earners at Rangers, but lower down, you're going to these are guys that are still needing money to retire with, because they retire at 35. So these are people that are needing the point of the influencer part yet. They need to start breaking money, and they need social media. So they can't just say, right, we'll just never do social media ever again.
Yeah. So following to Martin's point, like, sorry, Gavin, you go first.
I was going to say, I think that the big point about kind of same what Bruce was saying about we've sat and dug them out for the last 15 minutes or whatever, but no one's turning around and saying that they're not doing a good thing. As Self said, it's they're making a step towards change, but what we're asking is it enough? Is it going to make as much an impact as they hope it will? And I don't think any of us think that. And something more needs to be done.
Yeah.
Is it a start? Possibly, but it's got to be more.
Yeah, I totally agree with Gavin as well. And then following from Martin's point, like, it is now a source of income as well for a lot of these celebrities and football personalities. Like Ronaldo, I'm pretty sure makes more on his social media now than he actually does by playing football. So he'll be taking a massive pay cut, essentially. And then talking about pay cuts, we move on to our next topic, which would be, would you take a massive pay cut or a pay cut of any sort to play next to a certain player or for a certain team, maybe a legend that you want to always play with? So I'll pass on to Mitchell to lead us in that topic.
So for this, I kind of took inspiration for this topic from the NFL, and specifically the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, as we have all said in a previous podcast, I'm sure. I do that with Dog James.
Go.
And it was one of those things that it always intrigued, because in American football, like all things, American football's money is stupid, but the quarterback gets paid the most because he's the quarterback. And when you look at Brady, he over his years in New England took pay cut after pay cut after pay cut, so the money could be invested in the rest of the team. He still made a stupid amount of money. Like, let's not get it wrong. It's not like he was playing for. I don't even know what he was playing for. Pennies. I was going to go for an analogy, but yeah, it's not like he was playing for pennies, but
Cents to be American.
it's still pennies in America.
Is it?
Yeah, it's
No.
1 cent a penny. Yeah. But it's that sort of thing. So, like, for me personally, obviously I play hockey. I don't play at any really professional level. So I personally would stay at my club, if I can, stay at my club for as long as I can play. So I want to know, if you had a professional career in any sport you wanted, that was team sport, would you chase them from when you're young? Would you chase the money and go from bigger club to big contract, big paycheck, and chase possibly a title, or would you stay with your club? A question I think I'll throw to James first, considering the debate around Harry Kane currently. If they miss out in Champions League, he could be asking for his release, for transfer.
When we miss out on Champions League.
I see. If I said that, I would have sounded like a better Chelsea fan.
The scary thought is that West Ham are going to get there before anyone else.
But I think, just the question of should you take a pay cut is a bit of an oversimplification. I think that sports individuals do have families, and families will be taken into account when these decisions are made. Children in schools, if they're settled, why would you move abroad and make them change school? Is it worth doubling your weekly income to play for a team that's going to be mid-table when you're in Scotland and you've got chances of winning trophy in European football? I don't see the prospect of going to a mid-table team. I'm talking to you, Edward and Ayer. But I think
They're not winning trophies this year, though. That's the thing.
Well, yes. By that point, got the family aspect is very key, and I think the only team I would even consider taking a pay cut for is Celtic, because that's my team. I don't think I'd move to a team to play alongside a player. Idolizing someone is a sin, so I wouldn't do that. There you go.
So if someone turned around to you and said you can get 20 games with Messi, he'll you just play the ball to him, he'll whip them in the box and get a couple of goals.
Probably not. No.
I think there's a certain point, but take on James's point about the playing with someone. I think if you are a young prospect of a player who's not actually made it yet, and you have got the opportunity to play with a player who plays in that position that you can learn from, that you know you're going to get better because you're playing with him, so you can train with him day in, day out, and progress like that. I can see you going to a team, but it'd be a selfish going to a team to make yourself better because you're learning from somebody better. I think sport kind of gets oversimplified to a point where everybody thinks it's sport. You'll stay with your team, you'll do this, you'll do that. It's a job. You wake up in the morning, you go to work, they go to training, they get paid at the end of the week. They'll get paid more money if they do their job better. If they score more goals, they'll get more money. They have a short career. 35, most players retire, a wee bit older for some. Within that, when you're 18, you didn't get a great contract unless you're Rashford or at an extremely high level. And when you're maybe 30, 32, you're not going to get a higher paying contract. You're there to make money. That's your job. You're there to provide for your family. And I kind of see it going. I don't think I'd have to take that into consideration first and foremost before you had any other allegiances to anything.
Martin.
Sorry. Oh. On you go.
To clarify, is that you get money for scoring goals and not expected goals?
Well, to be fair, there is performance-related bonuses, in which case the expected goals do come into that. And
Does
I can see
that pay
James
more? Does
nodding
that
away
pay
at
more
that.
than does attempting to score a goal that's maybe an expected goal pay more than actually putting the ball in the back of the net?
One
Yes.
second.
All I'm
I
saying-
reckon James has got an answer for this. Go for it, James.
All I'm saying is that Kevin De Bruyne used expected goals and expected
get a fucking higher
assists to get a
contract.
pay rise to £400,000 a week. So yes, they
So
do
yes.
matter more.
Yes,
Right, so I've got a scenario for.
and you've
James
been
here.
lawyered.
So I've got a question for my scenario for James. James, who's like your ultimate most favourite player from Celtic
In history,
in history?
Henrik Larsson.
Right, okay, I thought it might have been. If
You were hoping
if
they
say,
weren't already did.
if say you were playing for Tottenham and Henrik Larsson comes and plays striker for Falkirk, and then Falkirk want to hire you but on a massive pay cut, but you get to play next to Henrik Larsson, would you do that? Would you take that?
No,
Okay,
I'd be,
Right, okay, fair enough. No, I just thought maybe it would tempt him with Henrik Larsson.
I'd
but
be
apparently not, so-
questioning the intelligence and rationality of Henrik Larsson more than anything in that scenario.
It was an extreme scenario. It was an extreme scenario.
No,
What
What have
but
you got the job?
what happens
He's
if Henrik
mid-40s,
Larsson
so I
goes
didn't think he'd
on
get a
a...
game for Barca.
Henrik Larsson comes along, plays well for Falkirk, and then moves in 6 months. So I've took a massive pay cut to play alongside him, and then he's just went, I don't like James, I'm moving. So
Which would be a logical
that's
reason,
more-
to be honest.
Exactly.
That's more about your
That's more than you
personality
think,
than
yeah.
about the team.
trying to make the unrealistic as realistic as possible. And the
Yeah.
notion of, Larsson would probably turn around and go, not playing alongside that Tory, I'm moving to Barcelona.
I
And
think there'd be a
Is
C
it-
word
is it-
after the Tory.
Isn't that
And
what the
then
girls
I-
say to you?
well, many a time, but I've moved to Falkirk. I've moved to Falkirk, took a massive pay cut, and I've started back off where I started life. And yeah, there'd be no point in that just to play alongside a player.
I think
I
the most interesting part of that story was that the likelihood of James playing for Falkirk. Like I know Falkirk have been bad at times, but they're not that bad.
I could do assisting goals.
One quick question again, James. This is more for the pay rise. If you were playing for Celtic,
Yeah.
but Rangers then offer you triple
Oh,
the
no,
pay that you were getting
no.
at Celtic, would you ever go play at Rangers?
No, no. Because
I
I'd
don't know
probably
of
go
many
like, if
players.
they're offering me the triple the wages, then they're going through a dodgy business plan again.
That was going to be my next point of view. I was going to say I agree with Martin about saying that it's good for a younger player to look at someone in the same position as them to go and learn. However, as a teenager playing left and right back, at no point in my all right youth football career did I ever look and go, I want to go to Hearts and learn a couple of things from Robbie Nielsen.
There's a reason
then-
for that.
Then again, Martin, if you were playing for a team and Hearts came and offered you a hell of a lot of money where you could sustain your mansion with a room for each 12 of your kids, would you accept the deal from Hearts?
Yes,
And why? Can you into why?
because it's about making money. It's a job. Everybody overly glorifies. I mean, I'd be wearing a hip strip under my heart strip.
So when you score the last minute goal in the
And
derby,
kisses a
and you're
badge.
overexcited and you take the top off to celebrate.
If they said anything about playing well for them. Oh, and
yeah, I forgot you're a keeper.
Hearts are away to almost stay up into the league, and 5 scored an own goal, and Hearts are relegated again.
Martin, nobody said you would have to play well because remember Nielsen's in charge.
Good point.
Anyway, back to
I
the
would
unexpected
like
goals.
to, I do hold a certain prestige for players who manage to stay with the same team all the way through. I mean, there's a few players who they've stayed with the same team because nobody else has actually went in and bought them. But there is certain players that you'd every season there's sort of somebody comes in from Harry Kane, for example, where everybody's coming in from they could get a move, but he's decided to stay where it is, and there is a lot to be said for the a one club player, but that's a lot different when that one club is one of the higher paying teams in the world.
Yeah, I'd go Mark's point. Like you look at, I'll say like a one club, but like for me, you'd probably go for like Terry. Came through the youth system, played, and you look at what he's won there, and that cements his legacy. No offense to Kane, but his only achievement is winning the Audi Cup, which is like as good a play as much as Payne said. He's a good striker and he's like a weird hybrid between number 9 and number 10.
Yeah.
And he's great and he's great to watch at times with how he plays. You can see Gavin's face just screwing off as I'm saying this. But it's
All I was going to say is Harry Kane is about a 9 3/4, just so I could say you're a wizard, Harry. I'll move on.
But it's like he could be that good, but if all he wins in his career is the Audi Cup, is it not kind of like a waste of a career almost in a sense? Would you say?
Well, he's played for the team that he came up through their youth academy, got
He
to the Champions League final with
Arsenal. He came through Arsenal.
finished third in a 2-horse race. These are accomplishments that not many players achieve in their career. And then when he retires, he's going to get a statue built at the new stadium. What a legacy that is. Who needs trophies when you can get a statue?
What a legacy with no awards? What a legacy with
James.
no trophies?
He got the Audi Cup.
Oh, one Audi Cup, brilliant.
But he's
James.
got personal accolades, Player of the Year, top goal scorer.
Two things, right?
Goes to top assists, I think, as well. So
Right, let's not go
In the
to
Premier League,
assists
though,
now.
he's not winning the Ballon d'Or anytime soon, is he?
Right, Martin, wait now, Martin.
Oh,
Give me
yeah.
a second to get this. Two things. He came through Arsenal's youth academy. Right, so let's not talk about that because I can say the same thing. Oh, Declan Rice came through West Ham. No, he came through Chelsea and he went to West Ham. Right, so let's not go where he came through the youth academy. Second of all, Michael Jackson got a statue outside of Craven Cottage. So don't go on about statues outside stadiums.
I'm a Celtic fan. I like my statues outside stadiums.
And Beckham's I'm pretty sure Beckham's got a statue outside Inter Miami, and he
No,
didn't play for them.
That-
He's just the owner of it.
That
of the
was
club.
James Corden's sketch, was it? No, they
Aye,
had
but
that statue.
no,
That
but he was
wasn't
actually
real.
supposed to get a statue anyways, though. Like he was actually getting a statue made for himself anyways, isn't he?
All I'm going to say is, well, we're talking about Harry Kane, and if he doesn't get Champions League, he's going to put his release in. You heard it here first. His pal Jermaine Defoe was like, Rangers is the place to be. Make sure you get this sorted. So watch this space, boys. That's all I'm saying.
So you
And
tell
Rangers
me
couldn't
Kane is
afford
going to
his
take
Aye.
football boots.
exactly.
I
So you tell
think
me Kane's going to go all the way from Tottenham to Rangers.
Yeah. Jermaine Defoe was having words with him. It's all right. We're sorted.
when they discuss things like that, though, I mean, it's not like Kane's skin. It's not like he's going to have to ever worry about money at all, ever. So I would say he's set. He's done for life now. He can retire now, and I wouldn't say going to pundit work or because I couldn't stand that voice constantly. But he's set. I would talk more about sort of your players who are making maybe a couple of grand a week and know that they have to then go into a job after they finished playing football because they haven't made enough money, and then for them to decide to stay there.
So I think one last thing just to round up. So I think we've got James's point. I think James wouldn't move for anyone. He'd stay. He's a one man. He's a one club man. But no matter what
Well,
he leaves.
within limits. If a team came along and quadrupled my wages, I'd be tempted.
So Celtic to Rangers. Rangers are quadrupling your wages.
No, there's obviously limits within this.
This is
As an
James.
example.
There's an asterisk to everything, and on that asterisk, there's an asterisk. So Martin,
There's
if
always
you
an
were-
asterisk beside Rangers.
and Celtic.
That'll be next to your half a title. Eh?
So Martin, what would you if you?
And you're
were-
54.
So Martin, if you're playing for Hibs, would you be a one club man? Would you stay at Hibs being your main team, or would you leave if money?
He's already said he'd go to Hearts.
That's very true.
I didn't say I'd go from Hibs to Hearts. I think if my choice was not to play football or play for Hearts, I'd play for Hearts because it's football.
Hi, Judas. Nice to meet you.
I've had the choice between Hibs or Hearts. I'd go with Hibs within certain areas, but you've got to take into account your style of football, how you play, how you're going to develop. It needs fits a lot more criteria than just being nostalgic about your youth and supporting your team. It's financially aided. It's if you've got a job and you are offered another job with more money, you just got to stay in your original job. No, you're going to take the new job.
Shahan, would you move? Would you stay with a boyhood club that you love, or would you be all starry-eyed and take a pay cut and move to a club so you can be with a legend?
I wouldn't take a pay cut. I'd take a pay rise and move to a club. Yeah.
Bruce?
Well, we've all seen me on the five-a-side park, and we all know that I play like Cristiano Ronaldo's left foot.
If it was planted in one place, yes.
So we know that clubs would be coming in for me left, right, and centre. Do you know? I'd be like, honestly. However, as Martin referred to earlier, money talks. So I'd be all for where the money is. But yeah, clubs would be coming in for me, no bother.
Gavin, what about you? Would you take a pay rise if a better club came in for you, or would you stick with your Hearts and be a loyal one club man?
When it comes to football, I would have to. I would have to say that I would pay anything to play on the park for Hearts, just to show them that, you know.
I meant if you were actually a professional footballer, not right now, trying to actually play for them.
Even if I was a professional footballer, I would pay anything to play for Hearts, but I would never take a pay raise to go to Hibs. I think that's where me and Martin differ, as I actually have some loyalties in that sense.
So you're not a Lewis Figo?
No.
Ironically, I think the Tories the only one in the chat who said they reject the pay rise. And you insult me all the time about being money orientated.
That's because you are, just because you don't say it publicly.
Just because you had this one opinion or this one
I know, exactly, one opposing opinion.
It's like Joseph Fitzel who lets one kid out. It does.
So
that's just went over my head.
Anyways, moving on. So, as we all know, that I think everybody has like varied opinions about the referees' decisions nowadays in football, and even linesman decisions in football and VR decisions in football. The question from around the table is: do you think the players themselves should be allowed to have reviews of game, like during the game, to send a decision right up to VAR if they think that it's the opposite decision? So I will give an example of what I'm thinking. So like if somebody thinks that they're offside and is given by the lineman as offside, but they don't think they're offside, they can send a review up without actually like the linesman actually like basically overthrowing the linesman ruling. So in cricket, say if you get LBW and you don't think it's LBW, you can send that review up, and each innings you get 2 review each per team. So you just literally overthrow the
what's LBW?
Leg before wicket. So
I think Martin's genuinely asking that which is
it's a way of somebody getting bowled out essentially. So if you don't think you have been LBW'd, you can send that review up to the third umpire essentially. They will review it, and if they're not out, they get to stay on the pitch and continue batting. If they are out, then the original umpire's decision stands.
So Shahan, is this asking if the same philosophy as what happens with tennis, where you've got a right
exactly.
to challenge it?
Exactly.
If you say tennis, everybody would go.
And same with American football as well. I'm pretty sure that they get to call the reviews as well. So say like a couple of reviews per team per half. Something like the Ronaldo scenario. If the ball goes over the line and it's not given as a goal, he can send it up as a review, and obviously it gets shown in the big screens within the stadium as well, so everybody can see that if the decision doesn't even get given by VAR, then they're clearly in the wrong, essentially.
Right, I'm going to take the reins here and give my verdict on this. I'm going to speak to James first and ask him to correct me if I'm wrong, but in tennis, I believe if you get your challenge right, you keep that challenge.
Yes, there's the same thing in cricket as well.
And
Right.
rugby league, just because it's going to be watched.
There's the same
I
thing in
thought I'd
cricket
ask
as well.
about tennis because everyone understands tennis.
And
understands
American
rugby
football.
league. So I would say that if a challenge aspect came into VAR and they say the team's got one challenge per half, so 2 challenges in 90 minutes, I think that would be a beneficial thing where it would kind of clear up a lot of the controversy where they can say, that wasn't an offside, and then it wasn't declared not offside after a challenge, and you get gifted the goal. I think it could work very well.
And because, sorry, on you go, Mark.
I think I probably agree with Gavin. There's a couple of instances recently where a player's, who was it? I can't remember what game it was. Somebody's went down to they gave a penalty. The referees gave a penalty. So the defender who's gave the penalty away is then went away and shouted at the referee, got booked for it. Referees then went to VAR, checked, it's no a penalty because the referee got it wrong, but booking stands because he got booked for shouting at the ref. At that point, the defender would have to be a bit calmer and saying, I'll challenge that, as opposed to, you're a fucking idiot. And might sort of save himself. But I do, whether it's a team captain or a manager or somebody's got that right to say it, I do have issues with it slowing down the game, because I think that's what the issue with VAR is, that it slows down the game still. But yeah, I like the concept of the idea.
I think, going on, if you ever get a chance, watch international or European or like top tier European hockey, because they have that challenge system. Every team gets one challenge. If they get it right, they keep it. If the video can't give any clear indication, like for some reason the camera's blocked, they still get to keep it. But obviously, if they get it wrong, they lose it. And I think it's a great thing, because you see players, they know how, when it comes to the end of the game and like players are tired and they realise, the game's done, we need a break, we'll challenge this decision. But there's a criteria on like kind of what decision you challenge. You don't just challenge on a random decision that's happened in the middle of the park. It's always like the goal mouth, if it's a penalty or something like that, because hockey's got
Yeah, and it's literally just when the whistle is blown because of a challenge or because of a handball. So handball could be given, but you're sure that it wasn't your hand that touched. It was literally like the side of your body or whatever. But it's given as a handball. You can challenge that, or even like I don't know who Man City were playing against, but Phil Foden went down. Got tackled in the box, went down but got up quickly, but couldn't score the goal. But that wasn't given as a penalty when it was clearly a penalty when you've seen like the replays and things like that, which could be challenged. So
I think
it'd be things like that.
It becomes like the way you're saying it is like, if it's a handball given against you, you challenge it there. It's like that's essentially you don't using VAR as it is.
Well, you don't necessarily have to challenge it. If you think you didn't handball it, you challenge it, because if it's in the box, your team's about to concede a penalty, then you challenge it if you don't think it was a handball. But generally, you have to do it as and when you think there's generally been like a decision made against you, and you haven't done anything wrong.
But that's the thing with football VAR. That's how it's supposed to work. If it's a handball in the box, it's a penalty. It will get reviewed regardless. Whereas hockey, it's on field. There's with hockey, and I'm pretty sure with rugby league, Australian rugby league, it's on field. So if you think in hockey, if you think you're playing it, it's in the D of the box, and you think it's hit, and you're certain it's hit your opposition's foot, and the umpire couldn't see it, that's when you turn and you go and you want to go upstairs with it. So it's as the game's going. But I feel like with football, like there's going to be times it's like the way the VAR works. If there's a foul in the box, it's already getting checked, and if it doesn't get overturned, what's the point in challenging it? Because you already know what the opinion is.
I think before the spiral's kind of out of control, we kind of go back to the point of there's going to be grey areas.
Mm-hmm.
But as a round table question, it's, do we think challenges could work in football when VAR is in use. I think that needs to be the question, and it needs to be a yes or no. Of course, there's going to be grey areas, and it needs to get worked out. As Martin said, the concept is there, so it needs to be put to a question of would it work in VAR when it's in use? Yes or no? I'm going to kick off by saying yes, the concept is a good idea.
So I'll move on to James then. James, do you think that'd be a good idea?
I genuinely don't know. My instinct says yes, but I think the grey area might be too grey.
Okay, Mitchell.
I think with the way football's played and the way they word the laws, I'm going to go with no. I like the concept in our sports, but I just don't think it works with how football rules work.
Okay, Martin.
I agree because there is certain grey areas with VAR, like if a ball goes out for a corner or doesn't, or goes out for a by kick. If the team then score for the corner, it's within a different phase of VAR, but nothing to do with it. But if it's quite obviously a corner or by kick, so things like that, I think that yes, because they are important parts of the game that make a big difference.
Okay, and then Bruce.
Yeah, no, for me, I don't think it's going to work. I've worked with the IFAB rules, laws of the game. They're too interpretive at times. For me, it doesn't work.
Okay, so according to me, I think it should be used because if it can work in other games, it's not just it also works in 11v11 games as well with American football. So it should be able to work in football as well if it's done properly. That is. So I think it should be something that is introduced. So that brings us to the end of our podcast today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. And if you like the episode, please click like and share, and please subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much. And we are the Sports Herd Podcast.